What if there was a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, that's what we've got. You're listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
Welcome to episode 17 of the C&C Talks podcast.
Just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Tuesday. We talk about politics, world events, and sports. And it is currently Monday, September 19th at about 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Yes, and we're going to start, as we always do, with some political news. And this one from the Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, committing some major offenses. Immigrant trafficking. He flew 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard. But here's what's interesting, Charlie, is he flew them from Texas, so there was no reason at all for him to actually be getting involved with this. It was just purely because he wanted to. In fact, it's not even really legal for him to be getting involved with this.
No, considering that he did use taxpayer money to do this. $12 million of it, in fact.
From his home state of Florida.
Yes.
Yeah, $12 million. Yeah, that's a lot. And he told the migrants that they would be going to Boston, actually, not Martha's Vineyard, Boston, where they would get food and health care. That was a lie. He completely fabricated that information. He just used it to convince them to board the plane.
And where is Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah, so it's a small island in Massachusetts, I believe. Okay. It is elitist. We can say that with lots of rich people there. The Obamas actually own a house there. Yeah, but so he said that they would be going to Boston, but lied to them just to convince them to board the plane. He also told nobody that they were coming. So nobody on the island knew that there were about to be 50 migrants arriving on the plane.
And of course, that means they couldn't prepare for the influx of people coming.
Correct. He also, though, he sent a camera crew to Martha's Vineyard to record the political stunt.
And then didn't he?
And then he released the video of it.
Yes,
we'll get to why it's a problem. But he was sending them there to specifically the Democratic areas to own the libs, which thought that he could just call liberals hypocrites because they support humane ways of dealing with the immigrant situation, which we can all agree is a problem. The way that migrants are processed at the southern border right now, and it definitely needs reform, but it needs to be done in a humane way, and Democrats support that, and the Republicans don't, which is an extraordinary statement to say about a political party. But
it is.
It's true. So he thought he could call liberals hypocrites because they didn't want to have to deal with the migrants, which seems like a great political plan, right? It also is very illegal. There's many potential crimes, potential human trafficking issues, potential kidnapping troubles, potential misusing public funds problems, and he could very well find himself under federal investigation for these problems.
Yes.
However, Charlie, I want to get to the reaction though from the people on Martha's Vineyard because it's extraordinary.
Yes. It essentially proved the exact opposite of what DeSantis wanted to prove. Because the people on the island gave the immigrants lots of help. They gave them food, shelter for the night, and healthcare, which was the three things that, of course, DeSantis was claiming wouldn't be given.
Yeah, exactly. And
so this political stunt to prove that he was correct completely backfired.
And also, he could end up getting arrested. But the broader point, though, is he's still being hailed as a hero on the right, which is just.
I think
that shows what they support, and it's just not basic human rights.
It is also very possible, considering what is happening to Trump at the moment, that he will be the front-runner of the Republican Party come the 2024 election.
Yeah, Trump just said at a rally on Saturday that all human traffickers should be given the death penalty. All
right, well then get rid of DeSantis.
Yeah, wow, their rivalry is certainly heated up.
And speaking of government affairs, shall we say, we have some news out of the
U.S. Senate. Yes, GOP Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced legislation calling for a national abortion ban, which, Charlie, is a very, very, very bad idea for the Republican Party.
Yes, especially considering that, of course, a lot of people who are pro women's rights are often on the left, and this will push even more voters to vote towards the Democrats in the election that's coming up, which really, again, shows another example of the Republicans shooting themselves in the foot right next to the midterms. So could this be another huge blow to what ends up happening in the 2022 midterms?
I mean, yeah, I think so, but I think what's also important to realize, right, they're saying the quiet part out loud, right? Even all of the rest of them that are going to end up saying, no, we don't support this. Once they take back Congress and the White House, if that happens,
which they eventually will.
Eventually they will. That's what they're gonna pass, and there's not gonna be really anything we can do about it.
Yep.
In some more criminal news, let's talk about Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. If you don't know who he is,
you don't want to know.
Boy, are you missing out, is what I was gonna say, because there's a lot of comedy involved in what he does. He owns the company My Pillow. He's likely very mentally ill. Former crack addict.
Really?
Probably still a crack addict.
I imagine.
But he's a major proponent of voter fraud. He claims that he has significant evidence of fraud involving international conspiracies, but he can never end up proving that. Now, he's under investigation for, wait for it,
a voter fraud.
Correct.
And in even more interesting news, he had his phone seized, get this, at a Hardee's.
At a Hardee's.
That seems like a pretty correct place for that to happen.
Yeah, now
especially
Hardee's,
Mike Lindell.
Well, now Hardee's is offering some sort of promotion where if you can prove to them that you still have a phone, you get a free breakfast biscuit.
That is incredible.
Yes, it is. But the seizure was allegedly due to him hacking into Colorado voting machines.
So I'm going to prove that there is voter fraud by committing voter fraud.
I mean that sums it up. That sums it up. In more crime news, Matt Gaetz, he sought a pardon for child sex trafficking, which we knew he was under investigation for that. He kept claiming he was innocent, but now we learned that when Trump was in office, he sought a pardon, and that doesn't generally make you think he's innocent, right?
Yes, I would not think that he is innocent at the moment.
Yeah. We move on. Some updates on Russia, Charlie.
Yes, for yet another week, the Russians continue to be pushed back by the Ukrainians, which just shows and also in another move of unconfidence. In Uzbekistan, Putin met with the leader of China to discuss what was going on, and clearly there were some difficulties in that discussion. And Russia is claiming that they will now use more force in the invasion, so we will see how that continues.
Yeah.
But as for now, good news on that front.
Yeah, also some less good news in the Caribbean. Hurricane Fiona has struck Puerto Rico. It's territory that is still somewhat recovering from the effects of Hurricane Maria, which were 5 years ago. They're mostly recovered, but still through some devastating effects. But now more than 1 million people have lost power in Puerto Rico due to this new hurricane, Cat 1 hurricane, I believe. Biden has activated FEMA for emergency relief. Remember, Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, as many people do not know.
And also in terms of natural disaster news, there was the news, I think it was either this week or last week, about that terrible flooding in Pakistan at the moment.
Oh, yes.
Nearly a third of their country's underwater. They've lost a lot of their food and animal farming areas.
Yep.
And their currency is not doing very well at the moment.
No, it's not. The U.S. dollar is doing very well at the moment, though.
It is.
About as well as it's ever done.
Something that I do find interesting is if you look at funding in terms of relief efforts, the funding has been at very minimal. The U.S. I think gave like $50 million or something, which it was interesting because I saw something that they were comparing it to the amount of money that the French got for rebuilding Notre Dame when it burned down, which was way more.
Significant, yeah. Let's move on to sports and start with the latest NFL week. But actually, before we get there, we're going to go to week 1 of the NFL because there was a Monday Night Football game last week that we did not get the chance to really discuss. It was between the Seahawks and the Broncos. Russell Wilson returned to Seattle. How did that go?
Not well. Not only for him, but also for his team. He was heavily booed when he came out onto the field. It's his first game back since being traded to Denver in the offseason. And the Seahawks actually got an upset, forcing 2 fumbles on the 1-yard line.
Yeah, the 1 yard. Sometimes like inches away from the goal.
And then there was a very interesting call with the Broncos' new coach where he let 40-ish seconds off the clock before kicking a field goal that missed.
Yeah, and it was a 64-yard field goal. Yes, would have won them the game, but would have been the second longest field goal in NFL history and much longer than their kickers ever kicked.
Yes.
His career high is 61. They could have gone for it on 4th and 5, but chose to kick the field goal, and they had
They just got an elite new quarterback.
Yeah, when you pay that much money, over $200 million for a quarterback, you just can't do that. So, disaster. Seahawks, meanwhile, in week 2, did not go as well. Lost to the 49ers 27-7. Seahawks offense did not score. Their only score was a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. The Broncos also, they barely beat the Texans, and Russell Wilson, he was booed in Denver also.
By his own
fans after several delay of game penalties. Some other NFL scores, we're going to try to move through these fairly quickly. The Chiefs defeated the Chargers 27-24. Both teams really had a shot at winning the AFC West, with the Chiefs coming out on top at Arrowhead.
They do. I do think it will be very interesting later in the season to see that rematch in SoFi Stadium with the Chargers' own fans.
Although, well, do they have fans? Let's be honest.
No, LA is mostly Rams.
LA just isn't a big football city in general.
Not really, but I mean, if they're going to root for a team, it would be LA.
Yeah. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert suffered a rib injury during the game. He's among the MVP favorites, but he should be good to play next week. So that's
luckily, because he's on my fantasy team.
The Giants defeated the Panthers. Giants now 2-0 for the first time since 2016, and the Panthers 0-2, even after trading for Baker Mayfield to try to be competitive this year. And then both of their losses to not great teams. The other loss was to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns aren't that bad. Well, we'll get to them in a minute, considering that they lost in an upset to the Jets. The Jets happened to be down 30-17 with 2 minutes to go, and reminder, their quarterback is Joe Flacco. And the Jets ended up coming back to win by 31-30. An absolutely insane comeback. And we're not even done with the comebacks because we had an absolute amazing game in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, the Dolphins came back to beat the Ravens 42-38 after being down 35-14 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So can the Dolphins be a threat this year?
I think they can. I believe they will probably be the top wildcard spot because I don't think they can catch Buffalo at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that they are definitely a playoff team. I mean,
I certainly do think they are better.
Tua's legit.
They are certainly better than the Patriots and the Jets.
Yeah, and another insane comeback. The Cardinals down 20-0 at halftime. They ended up tying the game up as time expired with a touchdown, then winning on a fumble recovered for a touchdown in overtime. Jaguars also beat the Colts 24-0. So are the Colts in trouble, Charlie?
I think certainly. I don't think the Matt Ryan trade has panned out whatsoever.
Nope.
I do think the Titans are also going to struggle this year. So does that leave the door open for the Jaguars?
I think it does, and I called you crazy even maybe last week for your bet saying that either the Jaguars or the Texans will make the playoffs. Someone from the AFC South has to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm losing hope for the Texans, though.
I think it's going to be the Jaguars.
I think it might.
I think that the Jaguars are going to win the AFC South. Lock that prediction in.
Watch us in early January when they finish 2-15, and I was just sitting here, just like,
Yep.
yeah, right. And in a game that was expected to not be close whatsoever, the Cowboys pulled off a win against the Bengals, made a field goal as time expired, and this is again with a backup quarterback.
Yes, is it time to worry about the Bengals?
I certainly think it is. They've done nothing but improve their offensive line this offseason. Yet it's just been two disasters in a row.
It's collapsed, right? He's got sacked 13 times in the first
13 times, and he's thrown I think 5 interceptions or 6.
Somewhere in there. So it's concerning. Some other scores around the league: Patriots beating the Steelers, Packers beating the Bears, Buccaneers beating the Saints
for the first time in 5 games.
Yes, and there was a brawl in the middle of that game. Mike Evans got suspended
for one game.
On
a shove on Lattimore, was it not?
Yes. The Lions beat the Commanders. Wow, Detroit. Wow. You won a game.
Is Detroit a threat this year?
No.
Why not?
No, they're not. No,
I mean,
they're not.
Swift is an incredible running back.
St. Brown is a phenomenal wide receiver.
And Goff is a quarterback.
But no, they're not the threat. Let's move on. Rams beating the Falcons, and then Vikings, Eagles, Titans Bills. They did not happen before we taped. We will
discuss
your predictions? Those games next week. Ooh, I got the Bills and probably the Vikings. Honestly,
I gotta. The only question I have is, can the Vikings offensive line hold up against that monstrous Eagles defensive line?
I don't know. Those are both playoff teams to me, though.
I agree. I think they will both win their divisions.
I don't know about that much, but
I mean, considering what the Vikings did to the Packers last weekend,
I think the Packers will win.
I don't think so.
Think that the Eagles?
Yes.
Sorry.
I think the Eagles or the Vikings.
I think the Vikings will win their division, and I think that the Cowboys might eke out over the Eagles.
I think that's going to come down to the final game of the season, though.
Yeah. Some injuries. Steelers linebacker T.J. Watt is injured. He'll be out for several weeks. That's a big blow to the Steelers because he's the Defensive Player of the Year from last year.
Yes, they still do have the nearly unstoppable Minka Fitzpatrick, though.
Seahawks safety Jamal Adams injured. He's out for the season, and 49ers quarterback Trey Lance injured. He's also out for the season. So Jimmy Garoppolo will start in his place. In college football, Charlie?
Yes. Unlike last week, everyone in the top 10 won their games. But that ends at number 11, with number 11 Michigan State losing to the University of Washington. The Huskies are now 3-0. And UW quarterback Michael, how do you pronounce that?
Penix.
Okay. Michael Penix Jr. has emerged as a legitimate Heisman contender this year.
Yes, he has.
In other upsets, number 25 Oregon upsets number 12 BYU, who probably shouldn't be there considering what happened to them against Baylor.
Yep.
And then number 24 Texas A&M, after having 2 disasters in a row.
Yes, they managed
to
upset Miami. Appalachian State beat Troy on a Hail Mary to win the game. Wow.
They just keep winning.
So let's get into the new rankings. They just came out on Sunday. Kentucky jumping up to 8. Oklahoma State down to 9, so they flip-flop. Everything else is the same in the top 10. But Washington goes from unranked to 18, whereas Michigan State falls out of the rankings. BYU falling 7 places to 19, Miami 10 places to 25, Oregon jumping 10 places to 15, and Penn State jumping 8 places to 14.
And then we have some quick, shall I say, guesses from us from the MLB.
Yeah.
We have a couple of pennant races that are going to really come down to the wire at this point. In the NL East, we have the Mets and the Braves. Who do you got in that one?
Mets. Just an easier schedule. I don't want to say it. Mets.
Knowing the Mets, I'm gonna say Atlanta comes up and wins the division. And then in other NL, who do you think's gonna get that final wild card spot? The Brewers or the Padres?
Brewers. The Padres will collapse.
I agree. And how many home runs is Aaron Judge gonna get before the season ends?
So he's gonna get the record, right? He has 59 right now. He's gonna get to 62, I believe. The record. Roger Maris at 61.
Where do you think he's gonna finish? How many do you think he's gonna hit?
64, maybe.
I was gonna say 64, 65.
Right in there. WNBA Finals. We have a new WNBA champion. The Las Vegas Aces have won the finals. The first championship in franchise history, defeating the Connecticut Sun in 4 games. Chelsea Gray wins the finals MVP. Roger Federer, meanwhile, has retired from tennis. He's announced following this week's Laver Cup. His 20 Grand Slam titles, just truly among one of the best to ever play the game. A big loss for the sport of tennis. And finally, before we close, some news from the Suns owner, Rob Sarver. It's not good. He was suspended for this upcoming season from both his job as the owner of the Suns and of the WNBA team, the Phoenix Mercury, after using the N-word repeatedly, sexually harassing employees, which included, Charlie, sending employees porn.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so 1 year is just not enough to me.
No, ban him from the league.
Yeah, so...
And just a reminder that F1 is still currently on a break and will return at the end of the month.
Yep, so... For today, though, that will do it for us, so make sure that you subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast, where we have episodes every Tuesday. We will be back next week at this same time, available everywhere that you listen to your podcast. Make sure to check us out on our website at cctalks.net, as well as following us on Twitter at cctalkspodcast. For our producer Morris, our production designer Zach, our co-writer Drake, and everybody here at the C&C Talks podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. See you next week.
Thanks for listening, everybody.